I'm going to help you send it on your behalf.
Alright, so starting now, Sha. Yeah, man, it's not
Okay,
straight.
so how do I connect? Sorry.
The YouTube man, the link.
Sorry, be careful.
Okay.
Is it that you've
Thanks.
not gotten script for that one?
But I'm on now. So now I don't know how to remove this thing now. Let's see this one.
Which one will not be joining?
Alright. Oh yeah, this is not ideal. Okay. Okay. Hmm. Okay, anyway, I'm having a green screen problem. I don't know how this got in. That's by the wayside, and we're just going to move ahead and begin instead of stopping myself with what the background is actually doing now. Unfortunately, that is how life can be some kind of time. So you may have a particular plan, and that plan now gets disrupted, right? So here with everyone. We're going to do our very best to get through with all of this as soon as possible and answering as many questions as we have pending. That is what the goal actually is. So, I'm going to start at the beginning with a review of a number of things, and one of them is this: is that the question of why do we even do IVF in the first place? What is the reason why IVF has come up? Why is it something that we actually work with? And it's because of the joy that is there. Unfortunately, I can't put images here. If I could, I would have showed you a lady who, when she was told of her pregnancy, she starts drooling on the floor. And some people will say, "Oh, that's too much or something." But imagine after years of trying and trying and trying again and having no pregnancy, what would you do when you finally see that pregnancy? I remember my father that cried, and I think that was the first man I had. He cried. He was crying profusely at the time because of his daughter that was handed to him. Why? He did not even believe that he could actually give birth again in this world after all the experiences he had been through. He had given up on the possibility of having his own child. So it is moments like this, things like this, that make us keep doing what we do. We can share more and more. A couple that I celebrated recently who had their twin babies had been trying for many years, had even been outside the country, tried, didn't have success, came back into Nigeria, finally did the IVF, got pregnant, and got delivered of her twin babies beautiful something. And there are many couples with that thing. And I know that yes, at this point in time, you have tried a number of things. Maybe you've even done some certain procedures before. You've taken medications that didn't work. You've done some traditional methods of cleansing or fertility teas, and they are not giving you the result that you want. It does not stop you. You can still have a successful IVF. You can still have your babies. You can still have your babies. And I like saying babies because a lot of times I've seen more multiple pregnancies than single pregnancies in IVF. Okay, maybe not more, but a lot of multiple pregnancies than single pregnancies in IVF. And one that thing about it is that one other thing about it you is that in all of this, I know that you may have had things like, oh, it has to be very expensive for it to be successful. You may have gotten things like, I don't know if any of you saw that BBC documentary about baby factories. I don't know if any of you had the opportunity to actually see that documentary about baby factories, how they keep the girls, get them pregnant, and you may have even had the experience of somebody coming up to you and suggesting that you do that kind of thing, but you decided not to, And going beyond that one, you may have even had to spend money on products that did not work, on herbs and all those things. The truth is that there are ways to get what you want, and it's possible for you to come back home. And there's an image that the sound that's always in my head is that image of a mother coming back home and she's hearing mommy or daddy and all of that. It's always a very encouraging. Hi Bridget. It's always a very encouraging sound to see something like that, to realize that yes, you too can get that pregnancy, and that yes, it's possible for you to experience this kind of thing. So my the goal of this presentation right now, the goal of this meeting is to help two kinds of people. One of them is that we want to help. If you don't know anything about IVF before now, by the end of this, we want you to be able to understand what IVF is and how it can help you. That's what it is, to teach you how to prepare for IVF. The second one is that if you've known about IVF before now, is to see how we can answer some of your questions and get you to the point whereby you can actually get your IVF done, and where you can do it and how you can do it. So the first thing is this: we've had the background from which I'm speaking to you is hi Naya Zeni. The background from which I'm speaking to you, yes, welcome, is of somebody that has worked across multiple fertility clinics. I've interacted with many fertility experts. I've been involved in a number of pregnancies myself, and I'm here because I want you yourself to also your have your pregnancy. You understand? That's what the goal actually is, and realize that there are certain things you have to go through. So while if you have your questions, you can ask them. The first thing I want us to really discuss is the very popular say that IVF is 50-50. And I tell you, it's actually not 50-50. But we have to start with the background of what IVF is in the first place. As many of you that don't know, IVF is what we call in vitro fertilization, which simply means that a man and a woman who are having difficulty getting pregnant after they've met adequately come together and see that because they're having these issues, they need what we call fertility support. And in needing fertility support, what we now do is we're going to extract the eggs from this woman, we're going to extract the sperm from this man, we will take out the semen to get the sperm, and we're going to take them to the lab, and at the lab we're going to put them together to see how this man, and to take them to the lab to see how this let's say this couple now can actually get pregnant. That's just the goal. That's just the goal. There are different kind of protocols to IVF. You have antagonist protocol, agonist protocol, and oftentimes you can also different see how uh, and oftentimes you can also see how this may affect the timeline of your IVF protocols. Different clinics may have different approaches within the same clinic as well. We can say that, oh, you've tried an antagonist protocol for some time, you're not getting success. Let's swap to an agonist protocol and move from the antagonist protocol to an agonist protocol and see if that gives us better success. So, and go back to the first point, which is this: IVF is not 50-50. It sounds very correct when you hear it, and there's an origin to why that is commonly said, and it comes from the fact that when IVF is done, because of the way human body is for us at this moment, which means that medicine at its greatest has not been able to fully force the human body to be subjected to what we want as doctors. So what that means is that the woman that you are trying to get pregnant and the man that you're trying to support his sperm for this pregnancy can actually undergo IVF and not get 100% success. That is what it means. So, what this actually translates to is that in doing IVF, there is always a chance of it having a possible failure. But if you look closely at what this means, what we are actually seeing is that um, there are different chances of success. Which say, for example, I do IVF now. Let's say I was a lady, and I do IVF. In doing that, I may have, and let me say I'm 39 years old. I've been struggling with infertility for the last 15 years because I got married early at 24 years of age. I've been struggling with infertility for the last 15 years. I've used medications, I've tried other things, and I'm still not getting pregnant. And I decided to come for IVF. Statistically speaking, it's possible that for a 39-year-old, you may be looking at between a 60 to even as high as say 80% chance of success or 60-50 something thereabout. But for that lady that is going in, for you that is going in for the IVF, there is nobody that can categorically tell you what your own chances of success are. So because there is nobody that can categorically tell you what your own chances of success are, it means that you can actually go into this IVF, do it one single time, and get pregnant from it. I mean, I consider that 100% individual success. Is that not right? Because you did it just once, got pregnant, and you are now moving on with your baby. What about if you did it just once and got quadruplets or triplets? You know? So there are individual nuances to it. How does your body respond to medications? Some people, even while you are giving them the medications for stimulation, you find that they are not producing enough eggs. They are not producing enough they are not responding enough to the medications that they are being given. That is how some people's body may respond to it. Some may require higher doses of, like, okay, I recall a lady that was 56 years old at the time that she was doing her IVF. Of course, she required higher doses of the same IVF to be able to get the pregnancy that she actually wanted. Different for everybody. So that difference now is what makes it untrue that IVF is 50-50. Because for you, you may have a 90% chance of success, you don't even want to try. For you, maybe that you just try once and get your pregnancy. For I was talking to a lady recently that did an IVF at 27 years of age, and she got, was it triplets? Yeah, from her own IVF. You understand? So the only way you are going to know what your actual chances of success are is when you try. That is just really what it is. There's no other person that can predict it, that can tell you what it's going to be, bar yourself. Then the other part of it is this: when you hear a lot about IVF, you start thinking IVF may not work for me. It's impossible for IVF to work for me. Do you know my body? Do you know who I am? What you should remember is that the oldest IVF pregnancy in the world right now is for a woman from India who was 74 years of age. 74 years. And why that becomes interesting, I'm also going to even tell you about some of the clinics we work with. And for example, the IVF clinic in Warri now, the fertility specialists, they're trained in India. Understand? And they achieve that. Now, let's say, okay, that woman is just one. The next oldest IVF pregnancy for a woman 72 years of age, 70 years of age, 66, 66. You go down, you start seeing 60. Personally, we've had 56 years, 54 years of age that have had IVF pregnancies. So, what this tells you is that it is very possible for IVF to work for you. It is very, very possible. You need to go through your your setup phase where we try to ensure that before the procedure starts, you are actually optimized as much as possible. So this may mean treating certain illnesses before the process starts. This may mean you or your husband being on certain medication before the procedure begins. This may mean for some persons as far as going for certain surgeries before the procedure actually starts. That is ensuring that we set up the background very well. This is even before the IVF itself. This is even before the IVF itself. And I recall a lady who came in with high prolactin, and she had been trying to get pregnant for some time. I tried certain procedures, didn't work for her. So she had to be on certain medications to try and get a normal prolactin level before the IVF procedure, before the fertility procedure. She did the fertility procedure and she got pregnant. If the background issue was not initially dealt with before the onset of everything, it would have been impossible to actually get success. Or unlikely, let me use the word unlikely, because like I told you cannot categorically tell what to expect until you actually try. Then let's look at another lady who came in, was willing to do IVF, had all the resources available, but had severe, huge fibroids that were not just huge, they were obstructing the endometrium, which is where the baby is going to stay. What happened in that particular case is that she had to have those side fibroids taken out before she could do IVF. She's the mother of twins today. We can go on and on. We can go on and on. Let's go to a man. Came in, had very low sperm counts. We theoreticize that if we go in with this kind of low sperm count, except we are doing a special procedure called ICSI, and even with that, with the way the sperm count was, we are still going to experience difficulties in this procedure. Decided to place him on some medications prior to the actual time where he was going to go for the IVF. He took his medications for 3 months prior, had retests at different intervals. We found that the sperm had actually improved, went in for the procedure, and is a father today. So the point is, IVF can work for you. Be it PCOS, fibroids, blood troop, whatever it is. There are machinations that usually happen around whatever problem we are facing to help get to your success. Then the other common thing that comes in is often the fact that IVF is a very expensive procedure and most people cannot afford it. You can't afford it, you understand? The thing is, I have come to see that the true cost of IVF is not just in the finance, that is actually, in fact, the financial part of things may even be the easiest thing to actually navigate when it comes to the IVF cost. It's going to be strenuous mentally, it's stressful for you, it involves a lot of hopes, a lot of faith as well, if you are faith based, a lot of faith in the fact that this process, this procedure can actually work for you. And one of the things to remember is like, I remember a patient, she was 42 years old. As at the time that she came in for her procedure, she wanted to do IVF, realized that this was what she wanted to do, but very practically and truly, she could not afford the cost of the procedures at that time. So what did she do? She didn't just sit back and say, no, I can't afford the procedure. She started saving up. Started saving up some money up until when she was getting closer spoke to some of her family members, her friends. They rallied around her. And one thing I loved about what she did was that she was pretty smart because she was already tilting towards the older age of the 42, going to 43, 44 by the time she was doing her savings. She did not just try to optimize for a single cycle. She tried to ensure that she saved for 2 to 3 cycles so that in case one does not watch this, she does not go back to the drawing board again. She's starting again, she's just doing it immediately. But as life will have it, she got pregnant on one try, and that was the end of her fertility seeking. That was the end of her issue. So I recall a patient too that tried at 50, singular try. You see, the thing is, you have to try to see. It's possible for IVF to, it is not too expensive. Then the other part of it is that even if you cannot afford it, try to start working towards it because you are not getting younger. Time is not going back, but time is going forward. So at least even if a time is going to come, whereby a problem is going to come, a problem may end up not being free. It's not very common that you may see. Yes, some people win free IVF or free IVF may come up. Maybe somebody's philanthropic enough to support in that kind of case. But since it's not always readily available, it's still good to have some form of funds, even if it seems impossible to actually get the totality of it. It's still good to have some form of funds so that you can have, if it's a promo support, if it's family support, if it's friend support, you can have all of that coming into play for your success. Then the other common limitation that comes into play is, oh, I finally got the money now. I've done my very best. I've gotten everything ready. But where can I do IVF? Where can I trust to go? I often say, do your research. Do your own research so that you can have. I believe strongly that there is an emotional component to the success of IVF. So it's good to do it as something that you feel comfortable with, that you feel like you have trust in your heart for this particular process in them, that they are going to be able to get you to a pregnancy. But if you need to be linked, let me talk about the fertility center and let's start with that. And how the fertility specialist that did his training in India spent time there, learned the techniques before coming back down, did modifications, and is constantly doing research, constantly doing reviews to see how it can improve the success of the procedure. Let's talk about Abuja. In Abuja, we have an embryologist there that has been flown across the nation to get her for certain clinics to help them with their procedure. That is, they pay a flight ticket, pay a service fee for her to come down to support them in their fertility procedures. In Port Harcourt, we have a very experienced team that possess decades of experience working with IVF. In Enugu, it's a professor that runs the center, a professor in O&G and infertility. So you can understand that getting competence is not, we can help you with that. And on average, the average success rate that they encounter is about between 60 to 80% of the success rate. So you can get IVF done, you can save for it, and remember that the cost of not having your baby is greater than the cost of doing the procedure and trying. Because before now, I would say, if the procedure may not work, maybe it's best to not even go into it. But imagine having your baby. Imagine that day when you finally come in for your pregnancy test. You've been apprehensive before, maybe you could not sleep the night before. You get there, the test is done, and you see positive. You start having pregnancy and complaining about pregnancy to other women do and say, this is making me to be, I'm eating too much, or I'm vomiting, or I'm spitting too much. And when you not even go from there, you not get to the next point where you not get to the next point where you are going through some pregnancies getting bigger and all that, and even that to the point of delivery. Then weigh that against not taking the chance of IVF. What is more expensive? It is essentially that it's always going to be more expensive to not try out the procedure, to not take your chance than to do it. And that's why we we encourage you greatly that IVF is something you should try. One question that came in was okay, do you doing hysteroscopy? Okay, no, HSG, okay, and what's and how it helps? Okay, so HSG has both a diagnostic and a therapeutic effect. What it means is that HSG can be used to see the potency of your tubes. It can be used to tell if your tubes are open or not. But sometimes, in the process of trying to check the tubes to tell if the tubes are open or not, it can actually help in opening up the tubes more and allow potency. But uh, okay, but the patency and even hydrotubation and all those things, the success rates are not the greatest of things. They are a bit low. So is something that you need to do an ECG a number of times before an IVF procedure to see the patency. ECG, SAG, stereoscopy, whichever one. But tuber patency is usually you actually need to check it out. So it's good that you do those procedures if that's been recommended for you. One other thing to look at is that there is a way to prepare for IVF. You're things to optimize. You are trying to get pregnant, working on fertility, and you are moving towards this, and you are still taking a lot of alcohol, smoking. That is never ideal. That is never ideal. What you need to do is optimize for healthy living. Light exercise if you're a lady, you don't need anything to strenuous that because excessive stress, excessive exercise is going to alter your cycle, and you don't want that. You need to be taking a lot of fruits, a lot of water. You need to be taking more fish. You need to be relaxed. You need to be rested. You need to ensure that you're putting yourself in a very good emotional state. If you can start prenatal vitamins. You can start folic acid supplements. There are things that you do when you are trying to get pregnant. So you cannot be lackadaisical. You cannot just act in any way that you want. And for the IVF program, I think I'll drop a link for that. Essentially, for women that are based in Lagos or Abuja, a foundation has come up to come and help support some of the fertility procedures. So instead of paying the 5, 4, 3 million naira that you may have been told the cost of IVF before, they are in Abuja is costing about 2 million naira for the IVF. In Lagos, is slightly more than that. So with that, they can do some form of fertility support to see how they can help in mitigating the actual cost of the IVF procedure. So that is essentially it. And if you have any other questions, you can drop them. If not, I think with this, we can round up at the 30 minutes mark. I don't want it to be too long. I just want it to be straightforward and easy. And I think that is just it for today. Any other questions? Anything? We'll wait for it. All right. Okay, so yes, even above menopause, it's actually possible to still get pregnant with IVF. When I talked about the 56-year-olds, the 74, 70, of course, they did not use their own eggs because at that time they are already so deep into menopause that they can actually not get pregnant anymore with their own eggs. So, what was done for them was to use donated eggs. The oldest pregnancy from a self egg is about 46-year-old and not regularly done because at that age is usually very poor. Essentially, no. There is a method that people talk about when it comes to doing gender selection. They tell you that if you meet before the ovulation day, it's more likely for you to get a female. That is what you are told. And if you meet on the day of ovulation or just after ovulation, after the egg is already there, it's more likely to get a. Studies are divided on it. Some studies have shown that it makes no difference whatsoever. It's not an effective method. Others argue that it is. So, and the ones that argue that it is are the older ones that are associated with the initial statement in the first place. So, it's not really accurate. So the best way to do gender selection, the most accurate way, is either through IVF. It's through IVF, but either through sperm setting or PGT. A clinic in Edo State? No, I do not. But I don't know about. Okay, no, we don't have anyone there. Though the one that I do that I have there is Worry, and so that's the one I can actually speak for. So Worry is the closest. But I think I've seen a lot about Maviscope, and maybe you can check them out on the in Edo State if you want to do something around there. Then okay, Worry is Agiwamu Fashion Fertility Center. Abuja is at Asup. I will just drop a list of the locations that we have and maybe a link for you to access them. And accessing your promo if you're in IVF, if you're in Lagos or Abuja is very easy. Just tell them that either Dr. Samuel or the IVF doctor, whichever one you recall, told you to come around. And in that case, you do your test first, though. You have to do your test first. After doing the test, then they will ascertain if you're a candidate for IVF. If you are, then the agency, the foundational support, and will now be put into place for you to do your procedure. So the point is, don't give up. IVF can work for you. You can have it. You can have your baby. It's not too late. I remember a lady, and I'm going to be rounding off on this point, that was, you know how Nigerians are and how life actually is. So someone is just on her own, they are sharing a line to hang their robes, their clothes, and she put her own clothes there before. Her neighbor comes and wants to hang her own clothes and shifts her clothes, and then her clothes don't get dry. She's complaining about it, and the next thing is, you that don't have children, what are you using with that, doing all those kind of robe, that last that large robe? And it's always very funny because what ties the woman's being a mother that's trying to conceive to the rope that is put up outside? Nothing. But they have this kind of questions of this kind of things all the time. Eventually, she got her baby, and all of those insults came to an end again. Okay, it depends on the location, the price for the because it depends on the location, it depends on what you are doing. There's sperm sorting and there's PGT. Sperm sorting is less accurate, about 60% accuracy. It can be up to 90, but 60% minimum, and that can cost about a million, two, three, depending on where you are doing it. And PGT itself can cost between 5 to about 8 on average. So depending on the method that you want to use. So in totality, you can spend about 3 to 5, or you can spend about 8 to 10 million to get the price range for gender selection. So that's what that one is. So thank you very much for coming in, and I think that's why we're rounding off today. And I wish you all a very, very wonderful time. Take care of yourself, everyone. Bye.